This is Newsverse with another breaking news. In a significant development in the ongoing war in Ukraine, Russian President Vladimir Putin has rejected a full ceasefire, but agreed to pause attacks on energy infrastructure following a phone call with US President Donald Trump. While this agreement is being touted as progress, the broader reality suggests a complex and uncertain road to peace. During the high-stakes conversation, Trump and Putin discussed a possible peace deal. But Moscow insisted that a comprehensive ceasefire could only happen if the West halted military aid and intelligence sharing with Ukraine. This condition has been firmly rejected by Ukraine's European allies, who argue that it would weaken Kiev's ability to defend itself. In response to the call, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky acknowledged that the energy ceasefire was a positive step, but expressed skepticism, stating that Ukraine needed more details and guarantees. Hours after the agreement was announced, Russian drone and missile strikes continued across Ukraine, targeting civilian infrastructure, including a hospital in Sumy and power stations in Sloviansk. Trump later described the call as very good and productive, claiming that a broader peace agreement was in the works. In contrast, the Kremlin's statement downplayed expectations, stressing that major obstacles remain and reinforcing Russia's stance that any settlement must include an end to foreign support for Ukraine. Meanwhile, European leaders, including German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and French President Emmanuel Macron, have urged for a complete ceasefire, calling the limited agreement only a small step toward real peace. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer reaffirmed Britain's unwavering support for Ukraine in a separate call with Zelensky. Despite diplomatic talks, the fighting continues. Shortly after the ceasefire on energy infrastructure was agreed upon, both Russia and Ukraine accused each other of launching new airstrikes. Ukraine reported that more than 40 Russian drones struck its cities overnight, while Russian officials claimed that Ukrainian forces attacked oil depots and military facilities in the Russian border regions of Belgorod and Krasnodar. The situation remains fluid, with US and Russian officials planning to hold further negotiations in Saudi Arabia to explore a broader peace agreement. However, Putin's conditions suggest he is looking for maximum leverage, knowing that Trump has already scaled back US military and intelligence aid to Ukraine in recent weeks. Many observers believe that Putin is deliberately buying time. By agreeing to a partial ceasefire, he can appear diplomatic while still pressuring Ukraine militarily. His demand for an end to Western aid echoes past statements, reinforcing Russia's long-term goal of forcing Kiev into a weakened negotiating position. Meanwhile, Trump's handling of the crisis remains under scrutiny. His administration recently paused US military aid to Ukraine, sparking tensions with Zelensky. During a recent meeting in Washington, Trump and his Vice President J.D. Vance publicly criticized Zelensky, accusing him of being ungrateful for American support. This diplomatic rift has left Ukraine increasingly reliant on European allies. For now, the energy ceasefire is in place, but full peace remains out of reach. The next steps will depend on how negotiations unfold in Saudi Arabia, whether Ukraine's allies maintain their support, and whether Putin truly seeks an end to the war or just a tactical pause. As the world watches, Ukraine's fate hangs in the balance, caught between diplomatic maneuvers, ongoing military strikes, and the shifting priorities of global superpowers. This is a developing story, and more updates are expected in the coming days. Stay tuned for more analysis on the Russia-Ukraine war, global diplomacy, and the shifting power dynamics shaping the future of international relations.